will spend half of everything we produce. That's the problem.
I'd like to see those Democrats, Hadley, stepping up and talking about cutting spending.
Well, I'm glad to see Democrats who are concerned about deficits and concerned about the national debt. You know, this shouldn't be a partisan issue, and I hope that Republicans will take the mantle of fiscal conservatism on in 2018 and that they will address many of our entitlement problems, our spending problems, because we have a national debt and we have deficits year over year over year, not because Americans are taxed too little, but because Washington spends too much. And I think the American people understand that. So cutting spending has to be a priority.
Well, John, where were the Democrats a year ago worrying about that $10 trillion in additional deficits over a decade?
They were nowhere. They've been nowhere since 2000 when the debt doubled under Bush and President Bush and doubled again under President Obama. And as the great philosopher Ricky Bobby once said, with all due respect, the only thing that is bipartisan in D.C. is incompetence. And there's no nicer way to say this. They're absolute buffoons up there. This dog and pony show is nothing but a bait and switch. We're talking about having $32 trillion in a federal deficit in 10 years. And all they're arguing about is this $1.5 trillion, if it is $1.5 trillion. Some say one, some say this dynamic scoring is fuzzy at best. You're ignoring 96% of the debt that is going to be out there. This is simply covering up years and years of mismanagement of this country's finances. And understand this, $32 trillion, if you have a normal interest rate, we're going to pay $1.6 trillion in only 10 years on debt interest alone. Think about what that could go into for schools. We're going to have no money for anything but entitlements and deficit spending, nothing else.
Well, Chuck, I want to bring up your brethren's fuzzy math from the top of this segment. I'm not sure how he gets to that north of $2 trillion. Maybe he's factoring in that some of these tax cuts don't expire, but that ain't how the law is written.
Well, you know, it's interesting in Washington, D.C., if you've got a lobbyist or if you've got a team of lobbyists, this tax bill is probably pretty good for you because your lobbyists have been working hard for you. Back to Gary B's point about the debt, I've spent this whole week down here in South Florida in some of our national parks, and guess what? The rates on those have gone up because the national parks don't have no money, and they've said they've been stricken for money, but we have enough money to give all of these tax cuts to these corporations. Now, if it stimulates the economy, I'm going to be the first one to jump up here on this stool and talk about it as a small businessman, but I think we can walk and chew gum at the same time, and I think we should be doing things that helps everybody instead of just a few.
Jonas, here's one thing. We will never close the annual budget deficit unless we grow revenue and grow the economy faster than it's been growing over the last decade. Revenue's only been growing the last 2 years when the deficit has grown at 1%. It should be growing at 3 to 5% during an expansion. This is how we get there, this tax reform.
I should have an Aston Martin, but I don't. You know, I will say, first of all, I'd like to congratulate Chuck on his new show on Animal Planet. I really like that.
It's going to be amazing.
I'd also like to say, look, I'm all for this corporate tax cut, but the bottom line is it's a 15% move in the wrong direction on the deficit. Yes, we needed a corporate tax rate that was similar to other countries for a lot of competitive reasons, but that's only half the game. These other countries have other taxes to make up for lower corporate tax. Germany is running a surplus right now, and we're going in the hole because we're not in a recession. We should be doing the same thing. It's not because they have low corporate tax. It's because they have a near 20% value-added tax. We're going to have the taxes on the other side that these other countries have if we're going to have a corporate tax rate that's similar to other countries. That's what we've got to move into next, in addition to cutting the entitlements as well to make this budget deficit go away in good times.
Gary B, this is what Jonas is saying, we need more taxes so we can give all that money to the government because they can't cut anything. And even Mitch McConnell said after this tax bill was passed, Gary B, Mitch said, I'm not touching Social Security and Medicare next year.
It's ludicrous. I guess if you have the feeling that, like I'm sure Chuck does, that the government should be mama bear and we give our money and they take care of us, then maybe, yeah, maybe we should give 100% of what we make to the government because they know best. But the problem here is, Chuck, even if I was taxed at 100% and everyone else has, it still wouldn't fix the problem. You talk about helping everyone out there. What are you talking about? Helping the people that already don't pay any federal income tax? They already get help through child assistance, through tax credits. through Social Security, through Medicare, through Medicaid and stuff like that. We're talking about people that actually pay taxes. But the problem is, it's not taxes. You have this thing called Social Security that was not started out to be a person's sole income. But slowly along the way, we've allowed the government, through default, as John would say, through being numbskulls, to be mother and Papa Bear and take care of everyone. That has to stop. And if it doesn't stop, if we're happy with that, then you have to be content with being the new Greece.
If you even say Schmedicare, Chuck, you've got Granny off the cliff commercials running against you in the midterm elections. Medicare, the hospital fund, it runs out of money in about 11 years, and benefits automatically get cut to 88 cents on the dollar. Why isn't somebody standing on the floor of the House screaming to high heaven about that?
You don't see Republicans talking about this deficit right now, but I guarantee as a political consultant, in 6 months we're going to be talking about the same thing Gary B's talking about, and talking about the bulk of this being on Social Security and Medicare, because a lot of poor working folks who've paid a lot of payroll taxes and a lot of taxes in their lifetime, like my father, rely on Social Security. We made a promise to these people. Sure, let's try to run it more efficiently. I'm not saying that we should be Papa Bear, Mama Bear. I know a lot about bears because I run a wildlife show, but what I'm saying is the things we should be doing is taking care of those people we made a promise to.
John, final word to you.
Look, I like Chuck's Crocodile Dundee shirt. The wildlife is pretty much Chuck's normal lifestyle on weekends, not necessarily bears. But the problem we have is not revenue. We're at 19% of revenue for tax revenue coming into the Treasury of GDP. That is about all the economy can take. We went from 2.1 trillion to 3.2 trillion under President Obama, and we're still running an $800 billion deficit. You could add a 20% value-added tax. You could add a 100% value-added tax. These people in Congress cannot balance a checkbook, and the more money they get, they're going to spend twice as much. That's the problem we have. We're looking at $32 trillion in 10 years. This tax bill, whether it's paid for or not, is a fraction of that problem, and a small fraction, less than 4%.
If you earned it, it's your money. It ain't the government's. Thank you, guys and gal. Codo on Business about 20 minutes from now. Neil, what have you got?
Hey, Dagan, it's a lie. It's a lie. You've heard about it, right? Democrats saying that the GOP created a big old financial monster with this tax plan, but some companies are confident it can bring us all back to life. And President Trump saying, you don't back us up, we don't open up our wallet. Why a key vote this week might have some UN members cut off for good. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, Neil. We can't wait. But up here first, the president says he's not firing special counsel Robert Mueller. So why do some in the mainstream media keep insisting he might?
Live from America's News headquarters in Washington, Merry Christmas Eve. I'm Leland Vittert. Out in California, the massive Thomas wildfire is entering the record books now. It is now the largest in state history, surpassing in size the 2003 Cedar Fire. Officials now say the Thomas fire has scorched more than 273,000 acres. That's 427 square miles. And so far, it is only 65% contained as the fight continues. And get this, a SpaceX rocket carrying 10 satellites into orbit from Southern California left behind a dazzling and, dare we say, mysterious light. These pictures going viral on social media. Some people thought the light was a TV show or a UFO. That is until the LA Fire Department put out an advisory to confirm that it came from a rocket launch. I'm Leland Vittert. Now back to Bulls and Bears.
No, I'm not. No.
President Trump and the White House keep saying it. Special counsel Robert Mueller isn't getting fired. So why does the media keep harping on it? John, you say you know why.
I do. It's because they didn't get what they wanted. Look, the media and many people were predicting indictments for President Trump. They're predicting evidence of collusion with Russia with President Trump. There's been zero evidence so far. They're mad about that. President Trump has come out and called them fake news. And it turns out that all they were predicting was indeed not true. And they're mad about the fact that they don't have something to report. There's been more evidence of Secretary Clinton with Russia than there has of President Trump. And it's just simply the media got it wrong, just like they got the polls wrong for President Trump in the last election.
Hadley, but lawmakers, too, keep bringing it up. Senator Mark Warner brought it up. Congressman Gutierrez wrote a letter saying we're going to have to come back to Washington if President Trump fires Mueller over the Christmas holiday.
Yeah, talking about something, saying something over and over again doesn't make it true, but it does make it seem more important to members of the public who are listening. And in media, we learn that there are various ways to bias a story. You can choose different words or have a different tone, but you also show your media bias or your bias as a lawmaker by choosing which stories to highlight, which ones to put on the front page. And I'm afraid that really what's behind this ultimately is the fact that many in the media don't want to talk about the fact that many corporations raise wages this week, offered Christmas bonuses because the tax reform is going to be very successful in helping the American middle-income workers. And I don't think they want to talk about President Trump's successful first year in office and his deregulation agenda. So why not continue to talk about Mueller and speculate there?
Chuck, why do they keep bringing it up? The possibility Trump's going to fire Mueller. Trump's going to fire Mueller. No, I'm not. No, I'm not.
We all work in this business to a little bit. I work in this business, and we know that that's good for ratings, and it's good for their audience. They're going to be talking about things that gin up the base, back to John's point. So when they're out there talking, it's one of the ugliest things about Washington, D.C. is that we're way so hyper-partisan, either on the far right with media or the far left with media, when most of America's right in the middle. If there's something that has went on here, let's have a full investigation. Let's get to the bottom of it. You should be covering the news that is news, and let the American people, that's what makes us different in America. We have a free and open media, and we should be talking about what matters. Now, this investigation may matter, it may not, but let's do it in a truthful way.
Gary B., is it just to goad the president, quite frankly?
Absolutely. You know, Chuck said we have a free and open media. We don't. We have a media that is actively rooting against Trump. You know why they keep bringing up this he's going to fire Mueller? They want him to fail. They want Trump to fail desperately. They still cannot get over that he won. They still cannot get over being smarty pants who are proved wrong in every poll. They want him to fail. You know why? So the Washington Post can run a headline that says, President Trump fires only man that could bring him to justice. I guarantee that's what they're after. They're rooting for the demise of him. They're rooting, in effect, for the demise of America. I think it's despicable. They're anything but partisan. That changed years ago.
Well, and Jonas, talking about Mueller possibly getting fired, it distracts from what we found out about some individuals working on this, on the Mueller investigation. Andrew Strzok, the FBI agent, with all the nasty Trump messages that he was sending. Andrew McCabe, deputy head of the FBI, couldn't give straight answers when he talked to Congress behind closed doors earlier this week. This distracts from all of that.
No, because there's enough real news and real reporting to be done on this story that you don't have to just do what you want to happen or what you think's going to happen or what sounds like something that's going to happen. I mean, the whole thing actually vaguely reminds me of the articles about Obama not being born in America. It's like you kind of like that's what it's doing the same thing that they criticize the other side of doing. As far as is Trump going to have a Saturday night massacre like Nixon and fire everybody? The same media that thinks he's going to do that says he watches TV all Saturday night, so he's not going to do both. So it's not going to happen. So I think it's not real articles. It's not real research. It's just reproducing stories, innuendos, snitching. It's the same kind of lousy journalism that got him like in the first place.
But again, Gary B., I go back to this. It's not just the media. This is being fed by Democrats in the Senate and in the House. And that makes it that much more despicable.
Well, and add in not only the media, but the entertainment industry. Now you have the Matt Damons of the world chiming in. So now it appears on Entertainment News, Washington Post, New York Times, CBS, across the board. You have trouble reading these days a pro-Trump article unless it's in, unless it's on Fox News for that matter, or the Fox News website.
And thank you, Gary B., for that. Thanks, guys and gal. Cashing in just over an hour from now. Trish, what do you have coming up?
Hey, Dagan, a new report says the Russia investigation could drag on for another year. Well, would that be a drag on the president's economic agenda for the entire year? We're going to talk about that. Plus, maximum rage over the minimum wage. 19 states getting set to raise their minimum pay. And there are worries that these hikes could force jobs to take a hike in 2018. Cashing in. I'll see you at 11:30.
Thanks, Trish. We'll be watching. But up here, next, forget the kids acting out. Ivanka Trump's surprise visit to a public school causes some parents to act out. Are they teaching all kids the wrong lesson? This first daughter, Ivanka Trump, visiting a Connecticut school this week with the CEO of IBM. Both successful women were promoting career education. The kids were said to be excited, but some parents, not so much. One even keeping their child at home for the day. Hadley, you say that is not a good lesson to teach our kids.
Oh, it's a terrible lesson. It sets a terrible example. We need to reclaim the art, all of us as Americans, of agreeing to disagree. When someone's saying something that you disagree with, and by the way, I don't think Ivanka Trump's was particularly political, or her speech there was particularly political, but let's say it was. If someone's saying something that you disagree with, the answer is not to plug up your ears and refuse to listen, but to have an exchange of ideas, learn from one another, try to understand one another better. You know, this is the opposite of what we should be teaching school-age children. We can't expect them then to grow up and be college students and have an open mind.
Gary B?
Well, look, you know, I grew up in the time when I was in elementary school, John F. Kennedy was president. Can you imagine? I don't ever remember the political bent of my parents, but if John F. Kennedy came, or Robert Kennedy, or any of the Kennedy kids came to our school, my God, it would have been thrilling, because it was the president of the United States, or the president's family. I agree with Hadley 100%. I'll tell you, as far as the college kids, I'm afraid that ship has already sailed. You know, my daughter is fairly liberal. I'm sure that if Trump or his family came, she might have walked out. That's sad. Maybe that's bad parenting, and I think maybe that's the case here in this Norwalk school, bad parenting.
Jonas?
Michelle Obama had the same problem when she was speaking about school lunch. Everyone's freaking out because she's talking about food. You know what? Ivanka Trump is not Steve Bannon. And even if Steve Bannon was speaking at your school, are you supposed to expose your kids to different viewpoints? It doesn't mean they're being brainwashed in 1 hour from one person. Just let it happen. Whoever side is there, that's what school is all about. It's not a big deal. Ivanka Trump is not the enemy, and neither was Michelle Obama.
Chuck, people just need to get over themselves, no?
I was just waiting for Gary B to be like, when I was a kid and this old guy showed up at my school named Lincoln. No, I'm joking. Sorry, Gary B. Look, these people have the right to do whatever they want to do with their kids. Sure, it may set a bad precedent, but that's the greatest thing you can control. The only control you're ever going to have over your kids was when they're little. So if you don't want them to go, you don't have to make them go, and you can explain to them whatever you want to explain to them. That you own them for just a little bit. Enjoy that. The Rocha boys are coming this weekend for Christmas, and I can't wait.
John?
Gary B is right. The outrage is wrong here. You're mad because your guy didn't get elected president, so you're beyond petulant and pull your kid out of school. Forget the fact that America right now, the latest Pew research, is 38 out of 71 developed countries in math and science right now. Our education system, we have some great teachers, but overall is failing our kids. And you're mad about the president's daughter visiting your school? Give me a break.
Right. The left preaching tolerance, but showing intolerance. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Hadley and Chuck, for joining us. Happy holidays. 'Tis the season for sneezing, but maybe not for long. One of our stock docs has a remedy to keep your nose from turning red while filling your wallet with a lot of green. Actions, Gary B. Go.
Dagan, Bitcoin's hot, but the real game changer is artificial intelligence. Google up 50% next 2 years.
John?
With 2 billion users, I think Facebook gets into sports in a big way. I think the stock's up 20% in a year. I do own it.
Jonas?
Bad holiday flu season, mediocre flu vaccine, good for makers of NyQuil. Procter & Gamble up 15% in a year.
He needs more NyQuil, John. Help me. Help me. Merry Christmas.
I'm getting Rosetta Stone.
Neil is now.
They're taking great credit for this accomplishment. Well, I call it a Pyrrhic victory because it's a Frankenstein. Dr. Frankenstein. And anybody who's familiar with Frankenstein knows that it was a creation, a monster that was created.
Oh, Doctor, I'm frightened.
Don't worry.
Do you know the ending of the Mary Shelley's story? The monster comes back to destroy.
Good. All righty. Well, Democrats like Nancy Pelosi want you to think that the new tax cut will strangle the economy, very Frankensteinian, but are we already seeing it take on a new life? Hi, everyone. Glad to have you. I'm Neil Cavuto. Well, AT&T, you got Comcast, Wells Fargo, quite a few of these companies that are already handing out bonuses, making new investments because of that Republican tax cut. Charles Payne says more will likely follow their lead. Also joining him is Charlie Gasparino. We got Deidre Bolton back with us, along with Ben Stein and Adam Lashinsky. Kennedy is off this week. All right, Charles, what do you make of this? Early signs that look like we're getting more than we thought from some companies.
It's alive! It's alive!
That's not bad.
The
That's pretty
economy
good.
is already rocking and rolling, and we saw already, I mean, there's a whole slate of names out there. The biggest tell was the first tell. A lot of people missed it. Tuesday, FedEx reported, and in their report, the CEO said, we are going to hire people, we're going to spend money on the infrastructure, and we're going to fund our pensions. And we're also going to do all of that and have a buck extra for the bottom line. That was the first tell on Tuesday. So I don't see how anyone could be against this. And certainly it's going to be an uphill battle for Nancy Pelosi to sell this to folks when they start seeing a fatter paycheck early next year.
You know, Ben Stein, the unexpected development was maybe a curse of riches for companies, right? They have a lot of money to play with, and apparently not only from the lower rate, but from all this money that will be allowed to come back here at a much lower rate of 15.6%. So take advantage of all they can, and hence the curse of riches and trying to spend it any way they can. And in this case, satisfying shareholders and potentially workers. What do you think?
Well, I think that you're missing another incredibly important part, which is the ability to expense, not have to depreciate, but expense research expenses, which is going to be an incredible bonanza.
Very good
but
point.
I am concerned, if I may say so, about Mrs. Pelosi's comment about, well, she didn't make it on your air, but she's made it a lot about the deficit. Of course, the Democrats always worry about the deficit when the Republicans are in power. They don't worry about it when they're in power. They don't worry about the fact that Obama added more to the deficit than all other presidents put together. But I think it's a bill which is very complicated and hard to understand. But once we understand it and once we get it straightened out in terms of our accountants, I think it's going to be a bonanza for American business. And I think it's going to be a bonanza for the economy generally, but there's going to be some rough sledding getting used to it at first.
All right, so Ben Stein is probably not going to be filling his taxes out on an index card. Deirdre, what do you think of what's being said, though, that this is an unexpected penny?
I think these companies are doing as good of a PR spin just to avoid future criticism as possible. I mean, Charles, you talked about some of the bonuses that companies are giving out. AT&T is one of note. AT&T and CVS actually specifically said we're going to hire more workers. A lot of different companies, Comcast included, AT&T as well, have talked about investing billions of dollars in infrastructure. So I think all of these companies, they just want to avoid that fat cat label, right? Nobody really wants to see this return of the 99 versus the 1%. So the companies are saying, you know, you gave us this tax break on good faith. We're going to invest like we're supposed to. We're also going to give money to middle-class workers. Even Apple has made vague noises about hiring more people in the U.S. So I just think this is if I were running corporate communications for any big company, this is exactly what I would be saying to do.
I wonder if there was a wink and a nod, an understanding, Gaspo, that, all right, look, the Republicans would tell the CEOs, we're really going nuts here for you.
You better do something.
Please,
do some cosmetic
do something, and more than just buying some stock.
You know, I just want to say that, see if Ben picks this up, that Nancy Pelosi's being very Abby normal. Did you get that, Ben? Get it? Abby Normal. Remember the Abby Normal brain scene in Young Frankenstein? In any event, listen.
I think kind of Charles Payne owns the Young Frankenstein.
Sorry, I had to put that in there. Listen, the bottom line is this: corporations and their boards have a fiduciary responsibility to shareholders, not the workers. Of course, this is cosmetic because the first thing they're going to do out of the gate is probably do big stock buybacks and M&A. They're not going to be hiring people off the charts. Now, will they eventually hire people? I'm a supply sider. I think yes. Where this tax plan goes enormously wrong is on the individual side, not on the corporate side. They are actually looking to raise taxes on some people, and that's horrendous. While they give tax breaks to private equity executives and guys that run oil and gas companies in Texas, and there's a lot of weirdness.
Well, technically, those cuts even expire in 2025, right? Even for middle class. For what you're saying,
right? But what I'm saying, yes, I agree. But although they can extend them, but my point is, they should have done something better on the individual side, and I think that's where this thing could be a landmine for Republicans. If people like in April they say, hey, I'm getting $20, I'm getting $20 in my paycheck a week, which isn't that much, but some people are really getting hammered. But but corporations are just doing nothing but stock buybacks.
Yeah.
That's something that could help them.
Adam, what do you make of that?
So my thoughts are very much in line with Charlie's. I think these companies, it's funny, the ones you mentioned, Comcast, Wells Fargo, and AT&T, I think this is more government relations than public relations.
Yes,
they wanted to very publicly say thank you to President Trump. And by the way, we've got a few regulatory issues and antitrust issues in front of you that we could use your help with.
You know what? I don't even care about their motivations. Like sometimes when my kids are behaving right before Christmas, I know what sort of smarmy little phony worms they're being, but I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I see that, and I think what we did,
you think
what
my
this bill
kids are
does on
phonies? No, you're an honest man.
Let me keep it with the. I'll keep it with the corporations, and I mean, I think the lowering the corporate tax rate was sort of a sensible move that most reasonable people agreed with. It was a good idea, but politically, as Charlie said, they're going to have the Republicans are going to have problems on the individual side. The individuals, otherwise known as voters.
I disagree 1,000%, and I don't disagree that the Democrats will try to make people feel bad because you know what, they're not rich. And I think it's going to backfire. The class envy stuff, I'm so tired of it because the bottom line is,
it's not a mention of a matter of class.
If I'm keeping more money in my paycheck than I've earned, and you're telling me, Adam, don't be happy because somebody's keeping more than you, that's despicable.
Actually, you're not going to keep more money. You might not.
Well, according to the tax, according to the most liberal analysis of this, 80% of America
will get $20 a month.
We'll get $2,000
a week.
$2,000 a year.
Okay, divide by 52.
Right,
$38.
Who cares if it's $2?
Anyway, the bottom line is,
you're giving huge tax cuts to corporations, and you're giving an average guy $38 a week.
I always wait real patiently, and I'm just trying to get in some facts here. Sure. This is the most liberal of all the folks who've scored this. Some folks have scored it even higher and said it could be as much as 4,000. So everyone agrees that people, 80% or more, will get more money in their paychecks. These are people who voted for President Trump, and this is what they voted for. If the Democrats want to run against that, Adam, fine. That's all I'm saying.
People who don't pay a lot of income tax are going to get an average of $38 a week in their paycheck.
There are going to be some
people that pay a lot of income tax. Yeah, people who don't work and get money.
You just started the show saying the surprising benefit here, what these companies are doing.
Refund on the child tax deduction.
I'm just saying this, that if you're an average worker, you're going to get $38 in your pocket a week.
If
you're a big company, you're going to get gazillions.
All right, Deirdre, what's going to happen? What's the fallout
boys and girls, when the stock market goes up, everyone benefits. It benefits your IRA. It benefits all your retirement plans. It benefits your children's college endowments. It's a big benefit for everyone.
And that backs up their, a lot of them are shoring up their pension plans, right?
By the way, when the stock market went up under Obama, people around here were saying, oh, it's only the rich people making money. I remember that line here a lot. On Fox News and Fox Business.
Well, of course he's right. I mean, of course Charlie's right about that.
I just want to say one thing, guys, before anybody gets in. If you can go today to your nearest Kmart or Walmart, to the layaway section, people who have layaway for $150, and if they can pay that off, today will be the happiest day in their life. I've seen it firsthand for the last 3 weeks. So I wouldn't dismiss $38 or anything. It means a lot to a lot of people.
Yeah, no, that does mean a lot to a lot of, and to your point about statistics, even the most sort of septic of all the think tanks has said 80% of the U.S. population